In today's new episode of Missing, we speak with return guest Jason Watts and new friend Ryan Lawhon. Today we are speaking about the disappearance of Brandon Lawson from Bronte, Texas on August 9th, 2013. Now, in the past few years, Jason and Ryan led a search team out to attempt to recover the remains or locate the remains of Brandon, and they actually did that, as well as many other people on the search team. So in this conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but Jason also wanted to answer some of the questions from the community. And most of the questions that we ask are from the Help Find Brandon Lawson Facebook page. Lance, what'd you think of this conversation?
Well, I thought it was a great conversation, not because we were talking about the disappearance of Brandon Lawson. We were mostly talking about the recovery of Brandon Lawson and the efforts that went into that. And at this point, we have the remains. Jason, Ryan, the entire team worked tirelessly to find them, to bring some answers to Ladessa, her kids, Brandon's parents. And as far as we know, these are actually his remains. So we are talking about a definitive recovery effort, and so cool to get somebody on like Ryan and hear his perspective and understanding the seemingly insurmountable obstacles that went into this with the terrain and with the land ownerships and locating people who own land who don't even live there and just going at it as much as they can and asking them, like, why you do this. And Ryan gives some really good answers as to why he does this. We know why Jason does it, and to see it from Ryan's perspective is really insightful.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation, and obviously our hearts go out to Brandon's family, Ladessa, and the whole crew there. And Lance, this is, such a tough time of year when talking about loss, so this is kind of a holiday episode, if you will, here today.
Releasing this episode right on Thanksgiving just seems to make a lot of sense when we lined up the conversation with Jason and Ryan. I think we were immediately in agreement that this is something that needs to be aired on Thanksgiving. It sounds cheesy, corny, whatever, but it is a time to spend with your family and your friends and to really appreciate what you have and to understand that some families have tragedies like this, and this time of year can be particularly tough for those families. So just keep those people in your thoughts as you're enjoying your holiday. And before we get to the conversation, just want to thank everybody who attended and donated to the Private Investigations for the Missing fundraiser, which we held on Tuesday, just a couple of days ago. It was on Tuesday, November 25th, and we had a great turnout. We had a great group of people come on to chat with us, to raise awareness for missing persons, to raise awareness for domestic abuse, violence against women. And even though that virtual fundraiser is technically over, you can still go to investigationsforthemissing.org. Really easy to donate there. Just click on the donate button. Seriously, $3, $5. You multiply that by like 100 people, and we got a decent amount of income coming in. So it's a great cause. It's a great organization founded by Bruce Maitland. Every little bit helps.
Okay, so we are going to break for commercial here, and we'll be right back with Jason and Ryan. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on social media at Missing CSM. Thanks a lot for listening. Welcome back to the podcast, Jason Watts, and welcome to the podcast, Ryan Lawhon. How are you both doing today?
Great.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, Jason, you've been on the show numerous times. I don't think there are many people out there who need to be formally introduced to you, but if you don't mind, would you refresh folks' memories a little bit about yourself and then maybe segue into an introduction to the gentleman who is right below me on our virtual screen, Ryan?
I'm Jason Watts. I'm a licensed private investigator, and I've been the advocate for the Brandon Lawson case for many years. I've been on numerous podcasts with you guys, with other podcasters. I organized and led the search team in 2022 that ultimately led to Brandon's discovery and then recovery. And Ryan here was part of my search team. He's been with me on many searches for Brandon before the discovery and after, and he's done some work on Brandon's case before I got acquainted with him. So anything that I do now pertaining to Brandon, Ryan's usually a part of it.
Great. And Ryan, where did your interest in Brandon's case come from?
I've always had a soft spot for missing persons. I learned about it at a very young age, and it stuck with me ever since then. I've also been an oil field worker for many years. It's a different universe, and to hear that someone in the oil field out in the middle of nowhere out in West Texas went missing, it was just a big deal and very concerning, and felt just really bad for the family and everything they were going through. I can't imagine what that's like. So I wanted to help. I kept falling kind of short on a lot of things that I thought I could do or get done through some people I know, and kind of kept running some brick walls. Jason can clearly tell you what it's like trying to track down landowners in a place that's owned by sometimes, LLCs or constant selling of the property. So by the time you finally find the person that owned it, it's already been sold off. And I had reached out to Ladessa and offered to help. The first time we actually spoke over the phone, her question to me was, "Who are you and what do you want?" And I said, "That's a fair question. I just want to help you if you want my help. If you don't, I'll walk away." And kind of a relationship was established there. And I guess with Jason and his work, he became aware of me, and we met and hit it off, and we both wanted to do the same thing for the same reasons, just to help the family and bring any kind of closure, if possible at all, to the family.
Something that you said right off the top there that kind of struck my curiosity is that you said you were interested in, or you had been affected by missing persons from a very young age or early on. Was there a specific thing that happened in your life that has caused this?
Yes. My father was doing kind of, I guess, maybe some holiday work, get some extra money and things like that. And I don't even know if I was in elementary school yet, but he would go into the entryways of a lot of stores, especially grocery stores, where you have flyers hung up. And I don't even know what the flyers were, but he was hanging some as well. And I kept seeing these pictures of children that said missing. I'm a young kid, I don't quite understand what I'm looking at, so I asked about it, and the way he explained it, I wish I could remember verbatim, but it put a fear in me, but it more so than anything put concern and sadness, and just thinking, man, to be a kid and then not be around your parents, that was the perspective back then, and just kind of stuck with me throughout time. And I shared a lot of missing persons on Facebook, kind of wore some people out sometimes with it. I'd share it if I saw it. And when Brandon's deal came about, just the nature of the situation and all the unknowns just really kept pulling at me. And I just kind of started doing some digging and some scratching and seeing what I could do. And I was glad to have met Jason and join him and do anything and everything we could to try to help.
And if you don't mind me asking one more question about that moment, I'm just really, again, curious and interested in this. Was there something that happened in your father's past that made him interested or made him want to be an advocate for missing persons, to want to go and put up flyers?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, the flyers he was putting up, I'm not sure what they were. I'm sure they were advertising of some sort. But back then, and I don't know that you really see it as much as you did back then, there was just lots of missing children posters in there. And it was overwhelming for a child to understand. My dad was always great at explaining things, even to a child, that you could understand.
And what kind of angles would you work for the case?
I was mainly trying to understand the area, which I kind of had some knowledge of, not it specifically, but I had been in West Texas doing oil field work, but not to that area. So things can drastically change foot by foot out there, and trying to understand layout and possibilities, and again, who owns what and how can we get onto that property to search. That was most of it. I had a friend that owns a trucking business that had his pilot's license, and I wanted to get Ledessa on that plane. And he was denied because of the base nearby. He was not going to be able to do that for her. I guess maybe something with him not being necessarily commercial. I'm not sure of all the stipulations, but it was denied. I also have a friend that is a record producer for Paramount, and while it's not his expertise, I wanted to maybe see if he could clean up that phone call, so we'd have a better understanding. And it again, not his background entirely, to get that cleaned up. We kind of got what we got, and that was just it.
Yes. Before we get deep into that, do we know how the two of you met, Jason and Ryan? How did the two of you meet?
In 2019 is really when I got to the point of the case where I met Lou Barry, and he and I discussed, the case and the details, and we both agreed that it was most likely that Brandon was probably still somewhere out there in the area near where he went missing. And so we both agreed that, well, if that's the case, then it's a matter of searching for him. So I began to put together a group of people that I felt like I could trust. And I kind of had some very tight stipulations for who I would and would not work with. And one of the prerequisites in my mind was to meet the person before I invited them on the search team. And Ledessa had mentioned to me that there was a man, Brian, who lived close to me that had done some work on the case. And I had seen some of the things he had posted on social media. So I reached out to him and told him what I was doing and asked him if he wanted to be a part of it. And of course, he was immediately on board. Now, unfortunately, this was kind of right as we got into the main part of COVID. So the first time I met Ryan was at the city park, and we sat at opposite ends of the picnic table with masks and Purell, and we were just passing notes and talking. And man, I forget how long we were out there. We were out there 3 or 4 hours just discussing the case and searching. But that's how that all came together.
And Ryan, at any point during this, were you like, Jason might be a little too intense for me or something? Or were you immediately, I'm not saying Jason's an intense guy. I'm just saying like, that's a lot of info. It's just a lot of information and a lot coming at you.
He's such an easygoing guy. You kind of can relax your shoulders when you meet him almost immediately. You get what you see. You see what you get, and there was no issues there. It was a great experience to sit there and know that there was someone else that was really trying hard to figure this thing out and help this family. And I was just immediately on board. I'm like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to work with this guy. You couldn't ask for a better person to work with, really.
Likewise. Ryan has actually become a very close friend of mine since all of this. When I transitioned to begin searching for Jason Landry, Ryan has come out with me several times. If I'm going in a foxhole, I'm going to ask Ryan to go with me.
Yeah.
That's great. Good to hear. Good to surround yourself with such good people as well. Now, Jason, you sent us a list of questions that were submitted to the Help Find Brandon Lawson Facebook page. And so we're going to read these questions. But before we do, I do just want to ask, what is the state of the case right now? Can you catch us up on what has happened in the past few years?
Well, after the results of the DNA analysis were finally complete, it took a while to get Coke County to release the remains to the family so that they could actually have a memorial and begin the process of, finally laying him to rest. The family actually had a little bit of a battle with the DA down there in Coke County. The DA did not want to release the remains because there was so little of him found that they could not accurately determine how he died. So they were hesitant to let go of the one piece of evidence that they had. But I mean, when you read the forensic anthropologist's report on those remains, there's nothing in there that is going to really help you make that determination of how he passed away. So in my opinion, holding on to the remains was not going to do them any favors. You can't hold on to every body that you can't determine how they died. You're going to start stacking up bodies. So there was a little bit of a fight. Ledessa actually took to social media very strongly. There was a, I think there was a, it was a change petition or there was some kind of petition. And then the DA finally agreed to release Brandon's remains to the family. As far as the case itself now, I believe, at least in law enforcement's eyes, it's still open. But as far as are they actively chasing anything down, I don't think so. At least there's been no indication of that to the family or to me.
All right, so let's get into some of these questions here. One of these you just mentioned, Billy asked, was the cause of death ever determined?
No, there was not enough. There wasn't enough left to make a determination on how he died. When Brandon was discovered in 2022, the only information that any of us got as to what they had found was part of the skull, partial skull. Turns out what was found was actually the entire skull cap, which, I mean, that is partial, but there was more than I thought they had found. I thought they had only found a piece of one of the bones that make up the skull, but they found parts of both parietals, parts of the occipital, and then part of the frontal. It makes up what is known as the skull cap, the top part of the cranium. But that's all that was found. And there wasn't enough on that to determine how he died. There was no sign of trauma to the remains other than animal activity. And there was no gunshot, no stab marking, nothing of that. So there just wasn't enough to make a determination. And barring any future discoveries, we may never know.
Another question that we have here is, why is Brandon's case currently listed as a cold case homicide with the Texas Rangers?
So the reason for that is this is what we would call an unattended death. That means a person is deceased, but there was nobody with the person as far as we can tell when they died, and there's not enough evidence at the scene or on the remains to determine how the person died. So they call it an unattended death. All unattended deaths are by default classified as homicides until an accurate determination can be made as to how the person ended up deceased.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Why did the sheriff think initially that Brandon either ran off to avoid his active warrant or ran off with another woman?
I do not know what made them think he ran off with another woman. There was, in Brandon's cell phone records, there is a text message that mentions a girl, and they didn't track that number down. When I tracked the number down myself, I immediately realized who it was. It was the mother of his first child, referring to the child not being able to come visit due to getting into trouble. When you look at Brandon's cell phone records, they have a big question mark next to that text message. I don't know why they didn't try to run that down. So I don't know if maybe that's why they thought that, or it was just them making an assumption. As far as why they thought maybe he was hiding from the warrant, I don't know. I mean, I guess that Brandon was not afraid to take the punishment that was dealt to him. Matter of fact, he had turned himself in before. I don't know if they just didn't bother looking further into that. Normally, a person who's trying to hide from a warrant doesn't call his brother, his neighbor, and half the people he knows, even 911, to come to him. So I'm not really sure why they thought that. I know a lot of people that some people that have warrants and criminal records will run, but Brandon was never known to do that.
And we have a question here, might be a little bit more conspiratorial, but something to be considered and answered. Is it possible that the remains and clothing were planted in the location they were found?
Ryan, you want to take that one and I'll kind of piggyback? You saw what was there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they were planted. You see a lot of that on the internet, and I really don't know how to answer that. I don't have any belief that it would have been planted. I think if you were going to plant something, you'd want it to be found so it would take on a specific narrative that person's trying to pass off. The way this was, where it was, and you're talking, I think, 8.5 years later after the fact, with the elements, the wind that's like no other out there. They were where they were, and they definitely weren't planted.
What was the condition of them
The condition of the items that were found would not be consistent with something being kept somewhere else and then planted in that location.
Right.
I mean, they were heavily degraded. You could tell the sun and the weather and the elements had taken their toll. It was consistent with, being in that location for a long period of time. I mean, Ryan, you said it yourself. I mean, you could tell, in a manner of speaking, the earth was attempting to reclaim them. And by that, we mean the grass had started to grow up around the items. So, I mean, that was consistent with them being there for quite a while. Not to mention, if you're going to plant evidence, for the whole goal of planting something is somebody's going to find this. You almost have to know somebody's going to look there. No one knew we were going out there. The sheriff didn't know. No one knew where we were searching. Even Ledessa and Brandon's family did not know the property we were going to be on. They didn't find that out till I told them after the discovery is made where we were. There were only 4 people that knew what property we were going to be on. Me, Lou Berry, the landowner, and I told Dylan because he was going to open the gate for you guys if he got there before I did. So there were only 4 people. I mean, I'm all the way back here in Fort Worth. The landowner was actually in the ICU with COVID the day we were going to do it. Lou Berry's in Massachusetts. He's not going to come down here and plant stuff. And then Dylan didn't even know the code to get on the gate till that morning. So no, it's highly unlikely that stuff was planted.
And also, I think where some of the people feel like that, they have a hard time understanding how these items could still exist all this time later. The shorts were 100% polyester. They're swim shorts. They're going to last. Heavily tattered, but they lasted enough for us to identify them. Shoes were, every layer to a shoe was separated. It was falling apart, but there was enough identification markers, including the manufacturer's video jet of the style shoe and the year it was produced. Not that we needed any more proof because we knew what we were looking for, but it literally said, hey, this is it. This is it.
Right. Okay. And so speaking of that area, what is the terrain like on the property where Brandon was located?
I don't know, Ryan, what would you think? What would you say? 65 to 70% of the property is covered in very thick cactus. I would say that's a fair number.
Yeah, we have to cut it down every time we've been out there so everyone can have a place to park and set up kind of a base area. And between that and mesquites, it'll pop a tire in a heartbeat. We got to go out there hours before, day before, and cut it all down and prep it so we can do what we can do. And then it's still climbing through it after that.
Sorry, what's a skeet?
Mesquite trees.
Oh, mesquite tree.
I think Whitney St. Andre from Navigating Advocacy, her and Melissa were out there with us. I think she put it best. Everything on that property is biologically designed to hurt or harm you.
Right. And here's another question. This one's nameless. How many fences would Brandon have had to cross to get where he was ultimately located?
There's some difficulty in answering that question because we don't know exactly what route Brandon took to get on that property. The best answer I can give is at least 1, possibly 2, but at least 1. And these were barbed wire fences, by the way.
Okay, and that kind of leads into this other question here. Aaron asked if there were searches done for him immediately after he went missing. Why did we find partial remains years later within a 10-minute walk from where his truck was found?
I don't know if I'd call that a 10-minute walk, more like a 10-minute run, maybe.
Miles-wise, how far would that be?
So the total distance between where Brandon's truck was located and where the items were located was, I measured it out online and it came out to 0.97 miles, which is pretty much a mile. I just go ahead and call it a mile. You might as well just round it up. It's a mile. So he was located a mile away from his truck. As to why he was not discovered, because that property was never searched before. It was not searched until our search team searched it. Now, it was flown over in the days after, but I think I know exactly why they missed him in that flyover. I mean, it's speculation, but it's reasonable. So Brandon went missing overnight Thursday into Friday. Coe County did not put a helicopter in the air until Tuesday. So you have all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and all day Monday that if he's out there, he's lying out there. Now you have to remember, he went missing in August. It's hot and it's humid. Heat and humidity significantly speed up the decomposition process. So Brandon was laying out in 100-degree heat for 4 days before anybody even got in the air really thoroughly. Now, Ledessa did fly over it, but she herself commented, I was in a crop dusting plane. It was hot. The plane was rocking back and forth. It was very hard to see. So, them not getting into the air until 4 days later, I think by that point, time and animals had already done their damage. I mean, even if you go back and look at not only their reports, but even the article that was put out by the sheriff's wife, you could tell they were looking for an intact body. I mean, they even specifically said, they could see the sacks of deer corn. And if you could see that, you would see a body. That indicates to me they were looking for an intact body that probably was not intact. And that's probably exactly why they missed him. And they didn't, they did not foot search this property.
Okay, and Rinna asks a similar question here. Basically, why it took so long to get a search done for Brandon, and she does note the terrain being rough, but she notes it's usually a minimum of 7 to 14 days. Why not for Brandon?
It's a small county. They only have 4 or 5 officers. They are not equipped to conduct a major search. They had to call in the Texas Rangers. A lot of times when you have a subject go missing near a major municipality or heavily populated county or city, they have enough resources to jump on it almost immediately. Coe County does not. Let's say you wanted to search a mile radius around where Brandon's truck was located. You would have to contact 13 different landowners to obtain permission to search all of that. Out of these 13, law enforcement probably only searched, what, Ryan, 8?
I think it was 8, yeah.
So they never got onto this property. Now, one thing I keep seeing, even after all this time, I actually tried to correct this when this discovery was first made 3 years ago, is a lot of people think that this landowner that owns this property where Brandon was found was a landowner that had denied searches in 2013. That is not true at all. This landowner was never contacted. He does not live on the property. He doesn't even live in Coe County. He does not have any close relatives in Coe County or Bronte. He doesn't have any, I think occasionally he'll communicate with the people that own properties around him, but he specifically only uses this property to hunt white-tailed deer. That's their hunting lease. Lots of people here in Texas have hunting leases that are nowhere near where they live. I know dudes that'll drive 3 or 4 hours to go hunt. So he had never even heard of the case until I reached out to him. And once I explained the situation to him, he immediately said, yes, go onto the property, do whatever you guys need to do. And even till this day, if we need to go back, all I have to do is shoot him a text. He's just been the most awesome person to us. But no, he was never contacted back in 2013.
Now, when you reach out to somebody like that and you tell them the story, do you also tell them that there's been chatter about the property? And did you tell him people are saying that you refused to have people come on to search? Do you give him a heads up, or you just let him
I don't think I've ever addressed that with him. I have told him that, hey, people are online. They're online people. Not everybody's nice, and not everybody knows what they're talking about because they don't have the facts. Some people are just holes. So, I mean, yeah, I'm very protective, of the case and of the landowner. So, he didn't know. He didn't know anybody was missing. He didn't know that somebody could potentially be deceased on his property. That's another reason this went as long as it did. No one knew. No one, he didn't know to go look.
And a couple of questions here about Brandon's clothing. Was any DNA evidence found on the clothing, and did the clothing show any indication of bullet holes or stab punctures?
I don't believe there's any DNA on anything. There's so many reports on DNA, it's kind of a hard read because there was so much attempted testing. Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they request the clothing at a later date from Coke County?
I can't remember what the exact date of. They sent the skull off to be tested first, and then I think they sent the clothing off to be tested once they were having so much difficulty getting DNA out of the remains. But Ryan is correct. According to their report, they did not find any DNA on the clothing. As far as evidence of foul play, Ryan and I can both attest to this. There was nothing on the shoes of the shorts that would indicate a person to reasonably believe that somebody had harmed him. I think it's okay if we go ahead and say this. The only thing I noticed on the shorts were puncture marks consistent with someone either running into cactus or barbed wire. And again, I'll have to clarify because the online community will immediately go nuts. These were not knife marks. They were not shotgun pellet holes. These were holes consistent with cactus or barbed wire. And Ryan, you can attest to that. You saw it as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Okay, how does that differ?
Well, if you have a knife stab, you're going to see it. It's going to be a thick, and so wide, clean cut. Shotgun pellets, they leave very unique holes. They're not perfect circle holes. They're because it's a pellet that breaks apart as it's shot. Now, these were needle-like holes consistent with cactus. I think they were cactus. I'm confident it was cactus.
Okay, and another question here. Will there be any more searches to attempt to locate additional evidence and remains?
For right now, we do not have any active plans to go back. Ledessa has stated to me that for right now, she's just focused on, mourning him and getting what remains were found back. I think they're still waiting for them to be returned from I think she's waiting on the death certificate so that the final process for the remains can be completed. I think that's where it stands right now as far as that end. And Ryan and I have discussed a little bit about perhaps going back on our own, but I don't know. That's going to be one of those that property is so littered with cactus that, and there very well could be some additional remains, and his keys and his wallet and his cell phone are probably there somewhere. But the problem is if it's in any of that cactus, it would take us a vast amount of time. We would literally have to sit there and go to each one of those cactus bushes and pull it apart individually. And you could do it, but it would, Ryan, I don't know, we'd be out there for months, if not a year easy trying to do all that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so the next question I'm going to ask shifts gears a little bit. Back in 2019, our other show, Crawlspace, we had an interview. We featured Brandon's brother, Kyle, and this question kind of runs along the conspiratorial lines here. Brandon's brother, Kyle, mentions a laptop containing a story about someone murdering Brandon. Was this looked into, and could there be any truth to it?
So yes, this was looked into by the ranger that was in charge of the case. He deemed the story unlikely. I took a look at it along with Lou Berry, and we both agreed that the story was highly unlikely. Just the things the person described were just not reasonable. And I'll give you an example. The person that claimed to have assaulted another individual that same evening in San Angelo and then walked to Bronte and encountered Brandon. To walk from San Angelo to Bronte in August would take you, just even any time would take you over 12 hours. So it's highly unlikely that this person actually assaulted somebody at even 6 or 7 in the evening and then walked out there to where Brandon was and encountered him. That the timeline would not add up. Was this person the Flash? It didn't work. And the person is claiming to then turn around afterwards and walked back from Bronte to San Angelo. You mean to tell me nobody noticed a guy walking on the side of the road in broad daylight after doing something to somebody in the way that this person described, it's just highly unlikely.
Yeah, well said. Okay, Heather has 2 questions. She says, I know the 911 call has been listened to, cleaned up, and everyone had their own take on it. With that being said, with new technology, has it been re-examined recently? And is there a law enforcement or criminal connection to the land that his remains were found on?
The phone call, to my knowledge, has not been cleaned up anymore, but I think where that comes up a lot with people is there's so many videos on YouTube, and most of them were recorded from the Coke County Sheriff's Office onto a cell phone. So you have added noise from recording that off of their device in between that has created a lot of conspiracy, theories and things like that just aren't true. They're not on the actual call. We have the actual call, and it is cleaned up, in my opinion, as cleaned up as it's going to get. Without all that added noise. It's just unfortunate that, you had one cell tower out there at that time. Calls drop. They drop a lot out there. Even with cell boosters, when I'd be out in the oil field, you can't keep a connection like you'd like to. So that also makes it sound like things are happening or being said, and there's a lot of speculation on words. I keep hearing, I think they say staper. I don't know what staper is. It's not a word around here. It's not slang. It sounds like it could have been state trooper jumbled up. I don't know. And it is a very frustrating phone call. So, and I'm sorry, the second part to that.
Was there a law enforcement connection to the property he was found on?
Law enforcement or criminal connection, yeah.
Basically, what they're asking is, does anybody in law enforcement own or have a connection to this property?
Oh, no.
I think I know why that comes up once I kind of started looking at things. So, and I still see it, on Reddit and stuff like that, that the sheriff owns a property out near there. No, that's not true. So the man that was sheriff when Brandon went missing was Wayne McCutcheon. He does not own any property near where Brandon's truck was found or where he was ultimately located. The man that was sheriff before him, Rick Stiles, he does own some property near the area, but it is in no close proximity to where Brandon was discovered. There's no reason to even begin to suspect that he had anything to do with it.
All right. Well, we were just talking about the 911 call, and to follow up on that, Janice asks, in the 911 call, Brandon says, quote, there's one car here, end quote. And it seems like, and this is Janice's question, it seems like you can hear a second voice when the operator says, quote, do you need an ambulance, end quote. And you hear a, yeah, end quote. As Brandon says, quote, no, I need the cops, end quote. Were there ever any reports of another person missing? There are obviously people out there that know more details about this if there was another car and or person there. Has this ever been researched?
I think back to the loss of signal, him maybe turning his head away from the phone, and all, I think it's Brandon's voice. I think he misspoke and then got back to the question at hand and said, no, I need the cops. And I think that's all that is. I understand where people are coming from on that, but there's no reason to believe that anyone was with him. It's real easy, real quick when the internet kind of goes into a frenzy, and now that's all you see. So it becomes misinformation and a new believed story to it that's just not true.
When I first heard that 911 call and started reading about that and reading the theories and that moment where you hear the yeah and then the no, I became really hyper aware that I do that a lot, especially in a situation where things are moving fast and someone asks me a question and my first instinct is to say yeah, just to acknowledge that I have heard them, and then I'd be like, yeah, well, no, and I go on to my answer. That yeah isn't exactly like affirmative. It's just, yes, I've acknowledged you, and now I'm going to answer the question. And after I realized that, listening back on it, it does sound like you can totally picture it, him looking around, hearing a question like, do you need something? You know, she's saying, do you need? And yeah, he needs something. So his first instinct is yeah. And then no, not an ambulance. I need the cops. You know, so that's where my head went. And I think if people start to like pay attention to how they talk, they might realize like, you know, they do it too. I think like 90% of people do that. I answer text messages like that.
Yeah, I agree.
You two just did it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think when I first went on with you guys in 2018, I actually gave a demonstration as I was talking to you. I need the guy, and it sounds exactly like that. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you guys' assessment. I think it's Brandon, and he's looking around, and then I need to. Yeah, we don't have any evidence that confirms that there was another car. I mean, we do have a truck driver that passes by the scene and notices Brandon's truck halfway in the shoulder, halfway in the lane. And when he got to Bronte to get gas for his truck, he called the sheriff's office and let him know it was there. I'm going to go ahead and drop some unknown information. There are 2 witnesses in addition to the truck driver who passed by the scene that night. They have come forward to us. One of these witnesses is certain they passed the scene at 1 a.m. on the dot. They were traveling from San Angelo to Abilene and noticed the truck parked crooked, and that's all they saw was the truck. No other cars, no other people. The second witness was again traveling from San Angelo to Abilene, and they're not certain of the exact time they passed the truck. They believe it was between 1:30 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. They actually noted that the flashers on the truck were on, which that's what Deputy Neal did when he was at the scene. He reached in and turned the flashers on. Again, this person reports only seeing Brandon's truck.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
And a question here from Tabitha. She says, what does LaDessa feel happened that night?
LaDessa keeps herself open kind of to all possibilities, but she wants to see evidence. Just from my conversations with her, she just can't picture why anybody would want to harm him. She said he didn't have really any enemies. He was a easygoing, friendly guy. He wasn't afraid to handle himself if he needed to, but he did not go out looking for trouble. So, she's like I said, she's open to any possibility, but she understands that at the end of the day, we need evidence before we can, really hang our hat on something. As far as how are her and the kids doing, they're doing reasonably well for what they've been through. I think they're starting to kind of heal, and I don't like to use the word move on because I don't think you're quote unquote move on. You just kind of adapt and can continue on with your life. And it looks like that's what they're trying to do. The 2 older girls are doing really good. They've got good jobs. They've got good heads on their shoulders. And of course the boys, they're still in school, but they're playing sports. They're doing good. And LaDessa's working, and she married in 2019, and the guy she's married to, he's a great guy. I've met him several times, always awesome to be around, treats LaDessa and the kids really well. And, they're happy as much as they can be, and that's great. And Brandon's parents, I think they still have some hard days, especially around the holidays and birthdays, but they're both doing reasonably well.
I did see that some of Brandon's kids were getting involved in social media as well, making videos. I thought that was really sort of exciting to see, and an interesting perspective to, I guess, get a little glimpse of.
Yeah. After every thunderstorm, there's a sunshine. And I think they're starting to get into that sunshine part a little bit.
Now, how important is it for the 2 of you to look at Brandon's family, to look at LaDessa and the children growing up, and doing it in a healthy environment? I know this is kind of like a obvious question to ask, but when you look at something like that, how does that make you feel in regards to your work on the search?
It's amazing with everything they've been through. Kids in Ledessa, just parents. The kids are absolutely amazing. It always blows me away with everything they've been through, and essentially Ledessa, for the most part, having to take all that on with raising them and caring for them, and all the things that come with that, with unanswered questions. Uh, it's a great family. It's always been a great family. You could see that immediately, whether through social media or especially meeting them in person for the first time. What a strong family unit they have abroad. I mean, the amount of family that was there and has always been supportive of each other is just amazing. Everyone wants that kind of family, and I guess that's where it kind of rattled some of our cages when some of the law enforcement had made the accusations that he would have ran off. You know very quickly that this is a strong, loving family, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't blame anyone who's gone through that turning in any other way, but they are just, there's too much love amongst each other, and that's why those kids are brilliant and great and doing very well despite this horrific tragedy.
I think Ryan hit it right on the head. It's an amazing thing to see, and you know, I despite what some people online think, I didn't do this for notoriety or fame or quote unquote glory. I did this because, you know, I felt like, you know, and I'm not going to go down like a giant rabbit hole, but I felt like that was what God was calling me to do, was to help them. And, you know, our good friend Greg Overacker once said everybody should wake up in the morning with a dragon to slay. And that was what this was for me. My dragon to slay was to help them in any way that I could. And if that meant finding Brandon for them, hey, I can look at it and go, I slayed the dragon, you know. But to see how far they've come, despite what they've been through, is extraordinary. And I hope that other families of missing persons see that and are able to, you know, I hope that brings them some hope, you know, is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And it can be achieved. You know, persistence pays off, as they say. And, you know, both myself and Ryan, God, we stuck with this for years. I mean, even before we started searching, you were doing things and I was doing things. But the search effort, happened over the course of what, 2.5 years. And, well, it's something else. That's the best way I can describe it.
Now, for the both of you personally, I know you just talked about how important it is for the family to have some sort of closure, but do you ever feel closure, like personally?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, yeah, there's some closure here with that Brandon was found and identified. You know, it's not my place necessarily to have a want from it. Anyone we're searching for, other than to help the family, and I don't decide what they want. I just follow what they want and try to bring that to them. If they're satisfied, then I am. I guess we'll leave it at that. We got them as close to closure as you can ever get. There's always going to be a hole there, but if they ask for us to go out there again, I'll do it until I can't. Until I'm physically unable to do it, I would continue doing that for them, and I'd continue doing that for anyone. That's I think that's my calling. With you know, God brought me to this, that we've been able to search for others, and like me and Jason have discussed before, until we physically can't do it, we will continue to do it. We wish we could get to everybody. We always kind of joke around if we won the lottery that this is all we would do. We obviously wouldn't have to work it more, and this is not work. When there's a need and someone really needs it, it's not work. You're just trying to get them the help they need. So
I'm going to echo that sentiment. I mean, if the family's satisfied, then I can say, okay, I'm satisfied too. If Ledessa or anybody in Brandon's family calls me and says, hey, can you go back? I'll go back. Absolutely. And if any other special conditions occur, for example, if, there's a bad drought down there and it kills off a lot of the cactus, or there's a fire that burns up half of it, then, I may call them and said, hey, look, this happened. Maybe we should go back and see if we can do more. But, I mean, as long as they're satisfied, I'm satisfied.
Sort of like taking off the metaphorical flyers that you spoke about earlier on, Ryan. Like in your head, like I picture you like taking those flyers down as you're finding these people.
Yeah, I mean that's that's perfectly put. Yeah, I mean what a feeling to it's never. I mean it's not the outcome anybody wants, but I can't imagine not knowing. I mean, and I don't even mean not knowing what happened. I mean not knowing where that person is, that loved one. I don't care how strong-minded of a person you are, how overwhelming that is. So if we can at least bring that kind of closure and peace, then I'm up for it. And I understand not everyone's up for that. You're at risk of seeing some things you're not going to be able to shake off. You might think you're strong enough until you're in that moment, and I'm willing to take that risk. I think I can handle it, but who knows what may happen down the road. But someone's got to do it, and law enforcement doesn't always have the time or resources or whatever the situation may be. So by all means, if I can get there to do it, I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna treat it like it's the only chance we have with that one landowner this one time, and make it count to the best of our ability.
Same sentiment. Absolutely. I got to thank you two guys, Tim and Lance. You gave me a platform for the very first time to do what I was trying to do. And, you had a role to play in this. And too, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't know who Lou Berry was. And this certainly wouldn't have happened without Lou. I mean, I know he's humble about it, and, he insists that he didn't do much from all the way from Massachusetts, but he did. And not only did he shape how this all ended up playing out, he shaped who I am as an investigator, and how I conduct myself in my future endeavors. So, I mean, everybody had a role to play, I mean, not to go too deep, but just to be honest, if it wasn't for Maura Murray's case, I wouldn't know who you two guys are. So everything has a role to play, and it's kind of cool when you go back and look at it, how you see all these small little things came together, and here we are. I think it's only a matter of time before it happens in other cases too. Maura's, Brianna Malin's, Jason Landry's, for heaven's sakes, we're coming up on 5 years for him here in 3 weeks. And it breaks my heart that it's gone, this long, especially we've been out there searching for him for 3, and we're throwing everything we got into trying to find him. But, God has a timing for everything. And I think one day we'll find Jason. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you both. And I've just got one final question here. I am just curious, based on these questions from the community, I'm curious where the, community sentiment is. Do they feel like there's still some mystery here, or are they satisfied that Brandon's death was somehow accidental?
I think you get a little bit of both. I think, just based on the evidence we do have, and the things we understand a little bit more about what went down or what was going on, especially with Brandon that night. I think some people have accepted that it's an accident, but there's other people that haven't. And I think there's always, until we get some sort of additional information as to how he passed away, I think there'll always be a little bit of a mystery there for people. Absolutely. I don't think it'll ever be forgotten. It may not be talked about as much as it once was. But I think the case itself is probably going to be talked about for years to come. As far as Brandon himself, his legacy is going to live on through his children and his brother and sister and all the friends and family that he had and the lives that he affected. He's going to live on in that way forever. I just hope that everything that has happened sets an example for others and gives them hope and inspires them to keep looking for their loved one. And I'm always here to help out any case that I can if I'm able. And I'm sure Ryan feels the same way. We're looking at Jason Landry's case. Ryan and I have both looked for Ray McDonald, and I'm actually gearing up to go back out soon for him. And we're still seeking information in Samantha Tapp's case. There's been another young man that went missing last year after crashing his car, Wade Robinson. I'm hoping to gear up and do some searching for him too. So yeah, that's really cool. Another cool way that Brandon's legacy will live on is he's inspired Ryan, he's inspired me, and his case affected us to where now we will take what we've learned from him and his case and apply it other places. So that's another cool way Brandon's legacy is going to live on. He was known as a man that would give the shirt off his back to help somebody else. And I think we got to carry on that sentiment for him and ourselves.
I did want to say something real quick. I'm thankful, guys, that you guys conduct yourselves in the way you do with these interviews. That I can remember, I've talked with Ladessa a whole lot, and anyone else that would talk to me that were family members to get kind of their input on things. And we all lead very busy lives, but you guys do these podcasts. And I can remember driving to work when I was working third shift and trying to listen as much as I could to the whole interview, which I didn't have enough time in my drive. But I got to hear this interview because now these people are in a situation where this is what the topic is going to be, and that is understood. And you guys know how to answer the questions and treat it with the respect that it deserves. And I was very thankful to hear that and learn the things through your podcast that I wasn't always able to achieve in between passing by conversations.
One final thing. I know a lot. I'm the face of everything, in Brandon's case a little bit, but I do want the community to understand that this was not just me that did this. This was a group of people. You two, Lou Berry, Private Investigations for the Missing, Greg Overacker, all those people that are in the Crawlspace media realm, all the other podcasters, all the other organizations that helped. This really was a group effort, and specifically Ryan, Josh, Amber, John, Chris and Melissa and Whitney and Paul, who were out there that day and endured that cold wind to do what we did. That was a group effort, man. It really was.